Those who defend justice are often the first to collapse. We talk about trauma among firefighters, police officers, and healthcare workers, but we rarely speak of lawyers, especially criminal defense attorneys, who face trauma not through sudden events, but through daily exposure to human suffering, murder cases, sexual assault records, child abuse testimonies. They watch hours of footage, read statements drenched in pain, and listen to voices that break. They fight for justice, yet justice does not protect them. A defense lawyer does not defend the crime, they defend the fairness of the legal process, but society rarely understands this. Public judgment turns into guilt. Clients bring moral weight, and slowly, the lawyer begins to split inside. Am I allowed to help this person? This is vicarious trauma, when someone else's pain becomes your own, not burnout. Not weakness, a psychological injury that can mirror PTSD. Some countries already support legal professionals with counseling, debriefings, and structured recovery programs, but in many places, the conversation has barely begun. This field is both meaningful and necessary where mental health, ethics, and technology meet. It is not just therapy, it is protecting the people who protect the system. They protect others in the name of the law, but who protects them? The murderer, me, and the statement from that day. Criminal defense attorney Mr. Kim read the same statement again today. The crime scene was brutal, the victim's final moments captured in language no one should have to read twice, and suddenly, the thought appeared, it could have been my family. He blinked once, steadied his breath, and continued reading, because stopping is not part of the job. Tonight, he will still sit at the dinner table, he will smile at his child, he will try to feel normal, but the images do not leave when the workday ends, they follow him home, silently. A criminal defense attorney carries a strict duty of confidentiality. Everything the client says, even the darkest confessions, must stay locked inside. But that very silence becomes the wound. He can't talk to friends, family, or sometimes even a therapist. The trauma has no voice, so it settles in the body. When he finally seeks help, another dilemma appears. How do I describe the trauma without describing the case? Legal ethics collide with the ethics of healing. The mind is full, yet cannot speak. This is vicarious trauma, pain that doesn't belong to you, but lives in you anyway. But what if there were a space to express emotion without revealing any details, a digital system that tracks only emotional patterns, an AI protocol that anonymizes experience, a therapeutic space designed specifically for legal professionals? Not to talk about the case, but to talk about how the case lives inside them, because the right to heal is not optional, it is part of dignity. People say, that's the job you chose, as if choosing a profession means forfeiting your humanity. Lawyers, police officers, investigators, those who witness suffering so others don't have to, carry wounds that have no courtroom and no verdict. Breaking silence is not weakness. It is the foundation of sustainable justice, and sometimes the first step is simply being able to say, that day, I was not okay. Why do relationships become pain again? Why do some people keep meeting the same kind of person, even when they know it will hurt? This repetition isn't about intelligence or choice, it's the trace of trauma. When a child grows up in an environment where love and pain are intertwined, where closeness also means fear, the nervous system learns a rule: love feels unsafe. So in adulthood, gentle love feels unfamiliar, stability feels empty, but instability feels strangely right, because the body recognizes it. This is called trauma reenactment, the body repeating what is familiar, not what is healthy. Research shows those with early relational trauma are more likely to enter abusive or unstable relationships later. The nervous system confuses danger with attachment. The mind says I won't go back, but the body says this is home. Three forces sustain this: distorted self-beliefs, I don't deserve better. If someone really knows me, they'll leave. A hypersensitive or numb nervous system, small signals feel threatening, or nothing feels meaningful at all. Longing and avoidance intertwined, craving connection while fearing it. This pattern doesn't just affect victims, it affects those who witness pain professionally: therapists, nurses, police officers, defense lawyers. They carry trauma that is not theirs, yet cannot speak of it. So healing isn't just emotional insight. It is retraining the body. Safe relationships, somatic calming, gradual emotional exposure, and supportive systems, including digital tools that help regulate emotion daily. We don't heal by forgetting the past, we heal by teaching the body a new message: it is safe now. Love can be gentle. And I am allowed to stay. Why do I keep falling apart? Why do I collapse so suddenly, even when nothing big happened? A single indifferent tone, a delayed reply, a moment of being unseen, and something inside me shatters. It feels like the present disappears, like the 10-year-old me, or the 5-year-old me, is suddenly standing in my place. This isn't sensitivity, this isn't mood. This is regression, one of the core responses of complex PTSD. Trauma does not store itself as a clean narrative, it stores itself in fragments: body memory, sensory flash, emotional temperature. Psychologists call it the unclosed file, a memory that never finished processing, so the brain leaves it open, waiting. Then one day, something touches the same emotional frequency, and the file opens again. Time collapses. I am not reacting to now, I am reacting to then, through my body now. This is why identity begins to split, why I have doubted my gender, my worth, my existence, and why relationships felt impossible. I feared hurting others, but more than that, I feared being known, because being known once meant being harmed. The body remembers before the mind can speak. When stress rises, I scratch my skin until it stings. The sting is not violence, it is an attempt to return to my body when the mind has left. Dissociation is not escape, it is the nervous system shutting down to survive. Adult trauma alone was heavy, but adult trauma stacked on childhood trauma becomes something else, not double pain, but pain that awakens old pain. Research shows that those with early trauma return to dissociation faster, stay there longer, and struggle to name what they feel at all. But here is the turning point: I am more than a diagnosis. My collapse is not failure, it is the body asking to be seen, at last. Healing begins the moment we say, this reaction has a history. And in understanding how I break, I learn how to stay. I wasn't broken, just overwhelmed, but for a long time, I didn't know that. I kept asking myself, why do I fall apart over something so small? Why do my emotions flare and collapse so quickly? Why do I want to hurt myself, even when I know I deserve care? There are people who live with these questions, people like me. Trauma isn't always one dramatic event, sometimes it's growing up unseen, unheard, always being the strong one. Learning early that love must be earned, not given, that safety was conditional. This kind of trauma doesn't break you all at once, it wears you down slowly until you no longer remember who you were before it. When trauma repeats across childhood and adulthood, the nervous system begins to live in a constant state of alarm. This is multiple trauma, and its effects appear everywhere: a mind full of self-doubt, emotions that swing between anger, shame, and numbness, a body that cannot relax, a heart that wants closeness but panics when it comes. People say, you're too sensitive. But this isn't sensitivity, it's regression. The child who once survived by shrinking returns when life feels unsafe. The body is grown, but the emotional age is still 5, or 10, or 12, at times. I dissociated, sound fading, reality blurring, not madness, protection, a nervous system doing whatever it must to survive. Psychiatrist Judith Herman wrote, self-destruction is not self-punishment, it is the only form of control that was ever allowed. When I read that, I finally understood. My reactions were not character flaws, they were memories. I am not broken, I am someone who endured too much, with too little help, and healing doesn't begin with strength, it begins with understanding, with naming what happened, with allowing yourself to feel even a little. If you are reading this, maybe your healing has already begun, not because everything is fixed, but because you're finally listening to yourself. And for today, that is enough.